Good evening, folks, and welcome to Here's Your Deal. Here's the deal. Oh man, I was even practicing tonight, Marvin. I just totally messed it up. Anyway, welcome to Here's the Deal. I'm your host, Shilo Kilber, and of course, I got my trusty co-host, Mr. Marvin Lepp. How are you, Marv?
Doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing really good. It was actually half nice up here today. I got out and got to do some safety meetings with a few of my crews, and so got to put a few miles on the pickup again today. So
Well, there you go. It was a balmy 6 degrees this morning.
I don't even know what it was up here, but all I know is I'm still wearing my FR hooded sweatshirt, so I'm all right. I'm not complaining too much. It's not that cold anymore. So we're looking for sunny days, right? We're almost into April, and we're kicking the election season off right, huh?
Yeah, I guess.
A lot been happening today. Obviously, we'll talk about that here after we have our guest on. So tonight's guest is from South Dakota. She's the president of the South Dakota Canvassing Group, and she's another lady that I met with Rick Weibel, who was on Friday with us down there in Missouri at the election summit. And she's from South Dakota, and they've been working together for about 3 years now. And I'm going to just go ahead and bring her on. Jessica, how are you, Jessica?
Hi, good evening. I'm fine. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
Good.
So thanks for being on with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. I know you guys are doing a lot down there in South Dakota. Your group, the South Dakota Canvassing Group. How about we just start by hearing a little bit about you and your group?
Sure. Well, our group is called South Dakota Canvassing Group, and we got that name by just because we started out canvassing, cyber canvassing, and door-to-door canvassing. And so we were on a Telegram chat, the America's First Audit Chat for South Dakota. I don't know if you guys had one for North Dakota. I think there was one for every state. And after the 2020 election, I just kind of, I was tired of doing income taxes. I have, done income tax for about 25 years and was praying for God to give me something to do that would make a difference. And I told my husband, you just got to give me a while. I got to figure this out. So I kind of took a break from working, and I kind of dove in headfirst into all of the community groups in Sioux Falls area and started going to a group called Unmask the Truth about health freedom and the Patriot Ripple Effect that was connecting people that were concerned about, local action in government and all those things. And so I started going to meetings and signed up to be a precinct committee person, and just started meeting all kinds of people that I would have never met. Well, some of those people in our group were also doing the same thing. And so it was kind of funny. We had kind of bumped into each other at the truck rally when the trucker convoy was going through Sioux Falls. And anyway, so we were on that chat, and it was about when the cyber symposium happened in Sioux Falls, and Captain Seth Keschel, I'm sure you guys know who he is, popped into our chat and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. If you guys want to put together something, I will come and talk to you. And so there was several of us that jumped in and put this event together. And I think it was like 4 days, and we had, good attendance. And out of that, after that, we said, okay, we need to get together in person. No more chatting on Telegram. We need to get to work. And so those people that met in person that first day were kind of our founding members. And since then, our group has kind of morphed. People come in and out as life demands. People move. Different things have, kind of people have come and gone. But every one of those people who have come and gone played a vital role in, kind of changing the landscape in South Dakota and waking people up and doing some of that hard work on the ground that, it's kind of a thankless job, but has definitely made a difference in our state.
So now when we talk about canvassing and what your group is active in, we're talking about the elections, correct? Just for our viewers, so they know.
Yes. So the canvassing is there's kind of an election, like candidate canvassing. If you're going to go door to door campaigning for a candidate, that's one type of canvassing. Our type of canvassing was canvassing for the voter rolls. So our group got together and had to purchase the voter rolls, and that's pretty expensive in South Dakota. It's $2,500 for one data set, and that is the data as it exists on that day that you order that data set. There's no backdated voter rolls. So you get what you get on the day that you order it. And if you want the absentee data, that's another $3,000. So if you want to analyze the absentee data, which is pretty pertinent to, accurate canvassing, you need that data too. And so we had fundraised to get that first set of the voter rolls, and then we got together in person and kind of sorted them all into voters per household, or per address. And so we sorted them from, the most to the least, and then we identified any address with 5 or more registered voters. We wanted to know what was going on at that address. So then we cyber canvassed with Rick Weibel in Brookings there, and Googled the addresses, trying to find out what was there. When we didn't know what was there, we had volunteers that we had connected with and had sent them on a drive-by. So they were sent to drive by that address, take a picture, report back to us. We logged all of that. And then we used Seth Keshel's analysis of the precincts to see where the most fraud would be. And of course, Pennington, which is the Rapid City area, and Lincoln and Minnehaha, which is where Sioux Falls is, had the most potential fraud. So we set out to do our door-to-door canvassing there. So then we sorted those lists and we mapped out the routes for our volunteers. We trained them. We had chain of custody for the documents. We had notaries. We kind of did all the things that we needed to do. And the canvassing on average of our voter rolls showed that of the doors answered, so about 40% of the doors were answered, 96% of those homes had voters on the rolls that did not live there and that had been casting votes from those homes as well.
96%.
That sounds like fun.
It was a ton of work. It was a massive undertaking, really. And we only went out a few weekends, and we had someone on the other side of the state coordinating the West River canvassing. But it produced evidence of dead voters, stolen votes, ghost votes, lost votes, pretty much everything you can find with election anomalies. And then from there, we thought we'd set out to correct these things, and we thought that our elected officials would be more than willing to help us with that. And that's where we started realizing what kind of roadblocks we'd run into on this kind of journey of trying to fix our elections.
So when you say you went to your elected officials, I mean, are you talking like your attorney general, your secretary of state, like who all was involved with that? Or did you start with your local representatives first?
Well, we've kind of done all of the above. We went to the auditors. The auditors were not super receptive to, a little bit of critiquing of that. You're really analyzing their work product, right? And so when some Joe Schmoes off the street come in and start critiquing your work product, instantly the walls and the defenses went up. So that didn't go so well. And then, of course, there's a million excuses of why we can't take these people off the rolls. And then as far as the Secretary of State's office, we called, we asked a lot of questions, we requested a lot of documents, and pretty soon they stopped communicating with us. And, because they knew they were in legal trouble, I guess, is the short of it. They knew they were in legal trouble. So stopped communicating with us. The state's attorneys in every county are advising the those auditors now to not hand out any public records that should be public. And we took the evidence of massive fraud, felony election fraud to the sheriffs in certain counties, and they didn't want to touch it. So they sent it to the Department of Criminal Investigation under the Attorney General's office, and it sat there for months and months and months. And so we started calling and saying, what's up with this? And well, they weren't going to touch it. So we wanted our evidence back. So that was a process, and just getting them to give us our documents back. So all in all, South Dakota does not have an appetite for hearing the truth on the state of the elections in South Dakota, and are still clinging to their narrative of the gold standard, right? Everybody wants to be like South Dakota. In fact, Kristi Noem and our former Secretary of State were out there telling everybody that people all across the country were calling to find out how we do the elections in South Dakota because it's the gold standard for the nation. When in fact, if they actually knew what was going on here, nobody would be claiming that.
Well, what's interesting, you said Seth Kessel's name here earlier. Last year, he put out a report saying North Dakota has, what was it, the most secure elections ever?
The cleanest voter rolls.
And yeah, we tried getting him on the show, and when we started talking with him about stuff, he was receptive until he started getting what we had, and then he didn't want to talk to us anymore. So there's that. Right,
because you guys don't have voter rolls, right?
Yep.
That's correct.
So you have the most secure voter rolls because you don't have any.
All right.
Right.
I can't tell you how many calls I took from all over the country: Oklahoma, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico. There was a couple other ones, and they're asking after that statement from him came out, and I was like, well, I don't understand what he's talking about right quick. I said, because we don't have any voter rolls. They're like, you what? We don't have any. We don't have any voter registration. So
yeah.
But
yeah, so that's pretty unique to North Dakota.
Yeah. So what about your guys' voter registration now? How does yours work?
So well, we've purchased many data sets over the past 3 years from the Secretary of State's office, and we've seen I'm sure anybody that's kind of aware of what's going on in the voter rolls in, say, New York or Georgia or any of the so-called swing states. South Dakota has that too. And ironically, South Dakota started this voter roll registration system called Total Vote was created by BPRO out of Pierre, South Dakota. And it has expanded to election night reporting, absentee balloting, campaign finance, kind of all of the things that, all of the aspects of an election. South Dakota actually has the most modules of this program, and they tried all of them out on us here first. The key fact is that it connects to the DMV, and we can see that South Dakota has automatic voter registration too. You have to opt out of voter registration, otherwise you're automatically registered to vote. And that is where a lot of problems come in, because the people at the DMV aren't charged by law with securing the voter rolls, right? Maintaining accurate voter rolls, and nothing's going to come down on them for registering people to vote that shouldn't be. We have seen that our Secretary of State purchased signature clipping software to clip the signatures off the driver's license applications and affix them to a voter registration form. And if you have ever read a voter registration form, they are signed under penalty of perjury, that they actually live at and have no present intention of leaving the above address, which leads to another whole can of worms of where these people actually live. The auditors are also charged with ensuring that those voter registration forms are accurate and complete. And we have purchased thousands of original voter registration forms that are not accurate and are not complete. So the vote, and we did a kind of a random sampling of those mail forwarding services that Rick was telling you about the other night, which is a commercial address that you can pay for them to get your mail. You have a virtual PO box, and they get your mail and they open it and they send it to you. They email it to you electronically, or they forward it to you wherever you actually live. So we have tens of thousands of them on our voter rolls. And so a lot of investigation into that shows that there's massive perjury going on in our voter rolls, because these people are allowed to register to vote without ensuring that it's accurate and complete, and they are not being verified as actual South Dakota residents. So we've been working a long time on this. We did an analysis on that random sampling of those mail forwarding services, and we have a 99% perjury rate coming out of a random sampling of all of those mail forwarding services. So 99% perjury, folks. That's not accurate, that's not complete, and that is not secure.
So my question is North Dakota, we got 22 months from when the election takes place to when the ballots are destroyed. They're gone. There's no more record of them. So what kind of time frame are you guys up against the wall against if you're challenging elections that are going through? Like, at what point are the ballots in South Dakota destroyed where you hit that wall, where if you don't have your proof submitted before then, there's no moving forward, so to speak, if you know what I mean?
Well, so that statute actually applies to our cast vote record lawsuit, and the federal statute is that any federal election records need to be kept for 22 months after the election. South Dakota adopted the law into state law. So the state law also says you have to keep any election records for 22 months after the election. So we have a long ongoing lawsuit for election records from 2020 and 2022. And we're so far down the road now that we're well past that destruction date of the 2020 election records. However, we were involved in a lawsuit, so they had not been destroyed. That got dismissed. And so we sent out a litigation hold notice to those counties and said, hey, we're going to sue you again, so you better preserve those records. So theoretically, they should still have them, because if they destroyed them, they did it in bad faith because they knew this issue was not resolved. And there's still a dispute for these public records. Secondly, the June 7, 2022 primary election records, that's coming up April 7, those can be destroyed. And so we have a hearing coming up soon. And so we're going to be requesting that the judge order that those election records be preserved until this dispute over public election records is resolved once and for all.
Yeah, and that's what really, like, even as a candidate, I think it's what you have 7 days after an election to challenge. So, I mean, people don't realize the time frame that they're up against when it comes into a lot of this stuff until you're super committed. And
Right.
so, like, that lawsuit puts that timestamp on it for the hold, but you ask, like, our auditors here, there's a good chance that our last election's already been destroyed.
Yeah.
Well, if they did that inside that 22-month time frame, they violated the law. So somebody should slap them with a lawsuit. And that time to challenge an election is really kind of a crock, because, like, in South Dakota, the auditors have 45 days to upload the voter history. So to tie the voters to the votes that they claim were cast in the election. So we don't even have that data until 45 days after the election, which is long past the certification and any kind of challenge. So you don't even have all the information that you need to be able to challenge the election until 45 days later. And having watched this through a couple of election cycles, waiting for that the voter history to be uploaded 45 days after the election. We could see, Rick and I were watching that. We could see several counties didn't comply with the law. We could see several counties, their voters that they say voted didn't match the supposed votes cast. So where's the rest of them? So when you're looking to reconcile all of these vote totals that they claim, are accurate, well, then your records have to match. And we can see that that's not happening in South Dakota. So something has to change, because you and I know, we saw it in the 2020 election, when Arizona got called for Trump, it was all over. You didn't have to verify the records. The media called it, was done. In our last primary, the media called the election for Kristi Noem when I think the votes had been coming in for 1 hour, maybe. The people of West River weren't even done voting, and they had called the election. So that media really is doing us a disservice in this election realm. And, all of this being reported live on the internet is where the problem comes.
Yeah. And so where I was at, North Dakota here, except for in subsection 2, action of a contest of an election must be commenced and a complaint must be filed in district court of the contestee's county of residence within 5 days after the final certification or recount by the appropriate canvassing board, or within 14 days of the final certification. So, I mean, it's really a narrow window. So it's interesting to hear you guys have upwards of 45 days to challenge.
No, that's just, they have the voter history has to be uploaded within 45 days. So we tie our votes to a voter 45 days after the election, when that certification and any challenges are well done ahead of that. So we don't have all the pieces of evidence that a guy would need to challenge an election until well after the time frame is passed. So that is basically rigged against the candidates, right? And so we had another candidate that ran in the June 7 primary, and it was close enough to challenge. And so again, this candidate resided in a district with 2 mail forwarding services. So do you guys know what Chase Mail is? As a candidate, you would get a list of the absentee ballots sent out every day. And so every day you would get that list emailed to you. So then you could chase that ballot with some campaign mail to get them, your last ditch effort to get them to vote for you.
Vote for you. Okay.
Yep. So these ballots were being requested to these specific addresses that were, again, the work product of the auditor or the Secretary of State's voter rolls. And that ballot was being sent out. Well, that candidate sent out campaign mail to exactly that same address. Well, that campaign mail bounced back, wasn't received because it wasn't deliverable. But yet that ballot ended up getting received by a voter, voted, and sent back to what the post office is claiming undeliverable for campaign mail. So who got those ballots, who voted them, and who sent them back? That happened for that candidate. We had, a massive amount of returned mail, and we could see that these ballots had been cast. There was still mail bouncing back well after that time period of being able to challenge the election. So again, a lot of this is a major disadvantage to candidates running an election when you don't have all the pieces of the evidence to be able to add to your case.
And they don't think that people will put 2 and 2 together. That's the thing that blows my mind. Like you're saying that you're getting tons of mail back, undeliverable mail, and that blows my mind that they think that you guys aren't going to put 2 and 2 together.
Well, I think for many a year, people weren't paying attention, or people weren't challenging it. You don't want to be, a lot of people don't want to be seen as a sore loser.
Yeah.
But that's being a good steward of the money people donated you
Mm-hmm.
to run for office. And the elections are supposed to be fair.
Yeah.
And one vote is supposed to be one vote on behalf of a bona fide registered voter. So we can see a lot of that is not happening in South Dakota. And that's where that, the distrust, one of the many reasons for distrusting our elections comes in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes, and maybe even I'm guilty of this, as we focus on the machines and what the machines aren't doing. But what we're talking about right here is just a big a problem as the machines are, in my view, because obviously that there's more people voting than maybe ought to, or however you want to put that. It's fraudulent,
Right.
especially if you can't send mail to follow those ballots wherever they went. So.
Right. Well, an example of that is, the county offices or the Secretary of State's office that sends out, voter verification cards. And, they send them out to addresses that don't exist, and they bounce back, and they're wasting all kinds of money on mail. So what Chris Jersky does if you follow him, the People's Audit out of Florida, he uses the CAS, CAS address verification system. So all of us have probably bought some sort of merchandise on the internet, and you have to verify your address. Like, you type in your address, and then a box pops up and says, "Oh, do you mean 123 4th Street Northeast," or whatever. So it verifies it with the post office, what the post office has as a legitimate address, and then it encodes it with that 4-digit code at the end of your zip code, because that's a verified address. Anything in e-commerce uses that CAS address verification, and our voter rolls, our Secretary of States don't do that when they're sending out ballots. So why wouldn't we use this address system to send only mail to legit verified addresses where we know that there is a resident there that can receive this mail? And our auditor in Minnehaha County, at one of the last county commission meetings that I was at, gave a presentation and said that she used a mail service, a commercial mail service that used this CAS address verification system. Saved the county $8,000 on one mailing. Now, she's the first one to do this because nobody else thinks of these things, right? So she's trying to go above and beyond and improve the systems in our county. $8,000 on one mailing. And again, that would ensure the ballots are ending up at a legit address and not ending up like those ballots with the Chase mail that we showed went somewhere. We don't know where they went, and they got voted and they came back. So how did that happen? We can reduce a lot of that by simply using that kind of system in our voter rolls. You guys in North Dakota use the total vote system. So this is where I have spent, years researching this total vote system that was built in South Dakota. It was built with HAVA funds by former Secretary of State. He commissioned this project, Chris Nelson. And they developed it. It's this great new modern electronic version of our voter roll systems that was going to make it so much easier for the auditors. Okay. And it's funny, North Dakota was the first one to be given this piece of software that was developed by our state that the state of South Dakota owned. So who owned that product, that software program? The people of South Dakota did. And our Secretary of State, then Chris Nelson, gave it away to North Dakota. I don't know under what authority he had to give away state-owned property, but they did anyway. And after that, Jason Gant jumped in and gave our state-owned property away to states all across the country, including New Mexico, Pennsylvania, North Dakota, Nebraska. Iowa had it for a while. It kind of has spread all across the country, but that Arizona, if you've watched what's gone down in the elections in Arizona, that couldn't happen without having this centralized voter roll system and the electronic election night reporting that's tied to all of the databases that have all the data points on all of the people in in Arizona, like we have in South Dakota. They partner with all of these state agencies, and then they interface. So every time there's an interface into this database, it's a weakness point, right? Or a hacking point. Now I'm an accountant. I don't speak, techno jargon, but you know what I'm saying. I think they're called APIs. But anyway, that is how in Arizona, when they stole 2020 and especially 22, when we saw those heat maps on the walls of the election offices, right? They had the heat maps up, and they were heat maps of the election precincts where it was heavily Republican. Well, the only way they could have had those heat maps was by using this product out of Pierre, South Dakota, this BPro total vote system, which has also the GIS mapping feature embedded in it, so that they were able to then program all of those tabulators to malfunction in those heavily Republican precincts. So
Okay, I'm going to pause you for half a second.
You bet.
So GIS, folks, what that is, it's a nationwide program where they have your homes listed, you can pull up property tax evaluations. It breaks all the way down to township or counties. So it is a feature that you can type in Bismarck GIS or Bismarck parcels. It'll show you the parcel. It'll show you the property tax value. It'll show you the name of the person that owns that address. So just to catch people up who aren't familiar with GIS, that's what it is. And it's a nationwide program. So like when I'm researching businesses, like people that have funded campaigns here, you go through all these shadow corporations once you get to the Secretary of State's office. So what it'll be is there will be a corporate shell that's based out of an office here in North Dakota. There's a couple in Bismarck that I think house like 120 different businesses, but they're tied to a street address in New Jersey or a street address in Delaware. And so you can only see so much when you pull something up on Google Earth. But when you go into Parcel Inspect, it'll give you the actual drill down as to who owns that property. So just to catch people up on what a GIS is and how it's handy to you. It also will show you like your property tax values, your last 5 years worth of property taxes, stuff like that. So back to where we were, heat maps, Arizona, GIS. Sorry.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you for explaining that, because I wouldn't have been able to explain it like that. So thank you. Yeah. And in that kind of technology in the wrong hands can be used against people that we saw in Arizona. This centralized voter registration system, if you've kind of kept track the last 3 years of what's going on, and maybe you've most recently watched the Let My People Go movie with that David Clements, that was his kind of brainchild. That centralized voter roll system in there is, one of three systems. One is the BPro total vote system out of South Dakota. The other one is VR systems out of Florida. And the other one is 10X. So there's three of them that kind of give the illusion of competition, just like Hart, InterCivic, ES&S, and Dominion. We know they all have the same software in them, and the same sort of ownership throughout those companies. Giving you an illusion of competition when it's basically all the same thing with a different cover on the outside, making it look different. So that really is the key. So way back when I started this and we did all of the things, we had Dr. Frank here for, a couple times he came and we talked about all these things. I kept asking questions and it just did not make sense in my head. And I never really got the answer that I wanted to. How could they do this? How could they have ballot harvested, and how could the mules have known where to go? And how could this, that, and the other thing? How could they have injected just the right amount of votes in just the right places? Because that BPro total vote, or the centralized voter roll system, wasn't part of that picture yet. It was missing from the picture. And And that centralized voter roll system and the election night reporting system is the spider in the web. It is in the middle of the circle. It's the circle in the middle of the wheel that makes the whole thing go round. So this whole election theft thing cannot go down without something in the middle holding it all together. And that is the complete access to all of those voter rolls to inject all the fake voters, that is tied to all the state agencies, that has the data points and all the people in your state, that can create all the ghost voters to inject them back into your voter rolls. So once we figured that out, our group had spent a long time researching and deep diving and digging. And last year is when the story totally blew up. And there was many an article in publications all across the country, and independent researchers in Hawaii and Washington and New Mexico and us here in South Dakota putting all these pieces of the puzzle together, and everyone came up with different vulnerabilities. We all had spent a lot of time and money doing public records requests to the Secretary of State's offices, getting all of these contracts. I sent out FOIAs all across the country to pretty much every state that has a contract with BPRO, and got their contracts and sat there and read them all. Pennsylvania and Oregon both signed $10 million contracts with BPRO Total Vote. And ironically, both of them now, so Pennsylvania just canceled their contract with BPRO. They've paid them millions of dollars. They haven't paid it back. And there is a third-party corporation called Gartner that has been overseeing their projects. So like in Oregon, if the state spends a certain amount of money, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but we'll just say over $5 million, they have to have independent oversight of those contracts to make sure that the timelines are met, watching the project management and all those kinds of things. Well, they've been watching the implementation of this project, and they, right from the beginning, were not meeting the specs of the deadlines, the contract details, all of those things. But the biggest thing was that they could not meet the cybersecurity requirements mandated by the state to house all of our personal identifiable information. Well, funny, I find that over here in Pennsylvania going on too. And they had Gartner reviewing the contracts in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania canceled the contract, and now for the 2024 election, they're forced to go back to using their old, outdated, antiquated, very highly insecure voter roll system for the 2024 elections. And they just instituted automatic voter registration. So their voter registrations are skyrocketing in Pennsylvania. Very convenient for the 2024 election. Same thing in Oregon. They've had to push off the implementation dates, and the only way they could get back kind of in compliance and maybe be able to complete the terms of their contract was by pushing it back past the 2024 election. So Oregon was also forced to go back to using their old voter roll system for the 2024 election. Now, our states use it. Nebraska uses it. New Mexico uses it. All of us use it. Why in the world, if they can't meet the basic cybersecurity requirements in these other states where they actually have oversight, independent oversight into the cybersecurity of this program that's housed in the cloud, that holds all of our personal identifiable information and our election night reporting, they can't secure it in those states. Why would we think it's secure here? I have no faith in it at all. Zero. None. And so when you look at those anomalies in the voter rolls that we've shown from our canvassing and constantly doing analysis on data set after data set after data set, those vulnerabilities have to be addressed, and none of our elected officials want to deal with it.
So here's my question, and this is just a general question, not for you specifically. So we've had 4 years of contesting the 2020 elections. There's contesting of the special election in Georgia in 21. There's contesting of stuff that happened in 22. For the average voter, I mean, that doesn't instill a lot of faith in the system. So what is your advice, or what is your thought lines for where we can get people out voting regardless, because it really is going to come down to, from what you're saying and from what we've been hearing, if you don't vote, somebody's going to vote for you, right?
It's possible.
If you have automatic enrollment, if you have stuff like that, you don't go vote, somebody's going to do it for you, correct? So what do we do when we get to the end of 24? Say if Donald Trump wins, now all of a sudden are we going to see that flipped where we're spending another 4 years fighting because the Democrats are arguing that their candidate should have won? Like, do we enter an endless cycle, or how do we fix this moving forward? That's my real question to the whole thing.
Well, we can see the federal agencies that, CISA saying right after the 2020 election, it was the safest and most secure election in history, and repeatedly, repeating that narrative over and over and over, despite nobody believing it was true. The safest and most secure election in history. They have kind of done a 180 on their narrative now and are warning of vulnerabilities in the voter roll systems specifically, which we were talking about, right, with Be Pro, Total Vote, and whatnot. They've been warning, the FBI has been warning of cyber attacks, possible cyber attacks coming in. And there was a sheriff that had met with the head of the FBI, and they were told to go and prepare all of the election officials for cyber attacks. So they are definitely completely reversing their narrative in preparation to deny the, if Trump would win, they would deny that as being hacked. We can see the moves being made in Congress where the majority is people are early retiring, and that whole, kind of shenanigans going on there, so that if Trump wins and they have the majority, they cannot certify the election. There's all kinds of things. Will it be an epic battle forever? I think the sanctity of our vote has been obliterated and destroyed. And the only way to come up with a result that everyone will trust is one day voting in person with a photo ID and hand counting the paper ballots in the precinct with your neighbors where you live, a precinct 2,000 and under. If you have 50% turnout, you count 1,000 ballots. Not a big deal. Yes, everybody can still count. And in fact, the tally sheets that Rick and his team have developed, and Linda Rance out of Missouri,
Yep.
you don't have to count. You can just mark dots, and that's it. And then you got to have somebody that can count at the end so you can add up the totals, but that's it. So transparency and full audibility, verifiability is the only way to fix the problem, so that if you have Democrats over here, you have Republicans over here, you have them on both sides of the table, you have them sitting next to each other, and they all come up with the same result. And it's not on the computer, it's not electronic, and there's nothing proprietary, there's no trade secrets. That is the only way to restore faith and trust in this system. And if that's truly where term limits come in, is if, our votes actually count, and the will of the voters actually done. That's where our term limits actually come in. Do we actually have term limits now? That's why this, convention of states thing is so huge, because we can't find term limits because maybe our votes really aren't counting when people are fed up with these congressmen who don't do the will of the voters. But you can't vote them out. And what do you got left? So that is the answer, is having transparent, real elections.
Well, you say that though, and you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, and there's no way that we can do hand counting. And I mean, but why do we need cybersecurity? The machines and stuff aren't on, the equipment isn't on the internet. That's all we keep hearing.
Right.
So,
well, it's, they have been saying the same thing here for 3 years, that sorry, I got a tickle in my throat now, that our
Fine.
elections are not on the internet. Yeah.
Mhm.
Nothing's on the internet, but yet the Secretary of State's office just hired a cybersecurity person or expert or whatever to secure our elections that aren't on the internet. That,
Yeah.
So because we all know, she said, we all know the environment has changed. Yes, this environment has changed. The people have woken up, they've paid attention. And then the third part of your question is actually getting good people involved in government again.
Mhm.
We've been apathetic, we've been lazy, we haven't participated. We've been glorifying sports. We want to go out and fish, and we want to go out and boat, and we want to go on vacation, and we want to do all the things, and we don't want to sacrifice anything. So that term freedom isn't free doesn't just apply to somebody who died in a war a long time ago and that's why I'm free. No, you have to actively be sacrificing something all the time, constantly. Vigilance. We got to be vigilant, because if we aren't sacrificing something to maintain and preserve our freedom, the bad guys are coming to steal it from us, and they never take a day off. So that's where we've gone wrong. And I think you and I and all of our friends and those around us that are participating know this now. And I just pray to God it's not too late.
So
Go ahead, Mark.
I know you say the bad guys never rest, but I found this back in 2020. This was leading into the special election in Georgia. It was online documents they did through Google Docs where they were live updating everything that they were doing. Post-election day, there's still work to do. So this was after the special election for the runoff for the Senate House. Post-election day actions. They were leading up to the election. They were putting out billboards in the Korean, Vietnamese, the Hindi. I mean, like all the different neighborhoods, they're putting up billboards, go out and vote for this candidate, go out and vote for this candidate. So, but you get down to post-election day action, there's still work to do. Check your ballot. 3,400 absentee ballots have been rejected and need to be cured ASAP. Even if you've already checked, please check again and make sure your vote has been accepted. So they were like out there encouraging. But up here they had, a celebration. The 5 women who helped get out the vote, the grassroots organization that flipped Georgia blue. Here's how they did it. Meet the Black women who turned Georgia blue. Latino voters show how far Georgia has come. But this one that caught me as interesting was the Lakota's People Law Project and Standing Rock Nation mobilized to contact Georgia's 100,000 Native American voters. So, these are all live links. So when they say they're getting out there and when they say they're getting involved, folks, it's not made up stuff. I have no access to edit that document whatsoever. But that's how we need to be looking at it too. If we are working on state party stuff, if we are working on convention stuff, if we are working on any of this stuff, we should have a working document. Because if you don't have a working document, you become stagnant, you become complacent, you don't get anywhere. So just to add into the bad guys never rest, I mean, that document was updated every day. Somebody was on there changing it every day, starting 2 weeks before Christmas. The last time it was updated was 1/7/2021.
It never really dawned on me, Jessica, until we were down there for the first day of that election summit, and Mike came on stage. And of course, we talk all the time of the rhinos and how the Republican Party's been infiltrated, by Democrats, or however you want to put that. But he even took it a step further. He said that it's no longer Republicans versus Democrats. It's the uniparty, and it's good versus evil. And that really resonated. And I have, you can ask Marv, I say that quite a bit on this show, and I firmly believe it. It's going to come down to a point where it's good versus evil, and people are going to have to decide what side they're going to be on. and that does mean getting involved and no matter what side of the aisle you're on, getting involved and doing your civic duty, because that's one of our God-given rights, and we're actually supposed to be doing that. And so
I 100% agree with that. Yes. We've heard, Mike says heroes and traitors. There's heroes and traitors, or there's patriots and communists. There's the uniparty, and then there's the grassroots. But yeah, the roadblocks that we've all run into. And I just can't for the life of me understand how all of these people can be so obstinate and not do any due diligence or not be reasonable to at least hear some of these facts and then go out and investigate it. They just flat out don't want to hear it. So that to me is, that delusion. There's a delusion about this, and they have scales in their eyes and they can't see. They can't see it. So I've been feeling this good versus evil for a long time. And, the way that this whole apparatus has been set up on the national level, and we're still told that we have, bottom up elections that are run by the counties. And in fact, they've been centralized and federalized for a long time. And we're still lied to about it repeatedly. That is the good versus evil. And we can see what happened with our own Secretary of State. She ran as a grassroots candidate. She promised us all kinds of things. She was our friend and promptly turned around and stabbed us in the back, cut us all off, and has done completely the opposite. And I don't know how she can sleep at night. That's good versus evil. It's all around us. And so, as bad as things are, I don't know if it's, and I've heard, it's end times. It's the destruction of our country. It could be any of these things. But in the meantime, we press on. God wants us to do something. Onward Christian soldiers. You have to get up and do something and fight for what is right. And, we do what we can do, and then the results are up to God. So that's the part about having faith is, I can go out and do something and like Rick too, you can have your name out there. You can be afraid for your life. But we know where we're going to go. So we're not afraid. We're not afraid of people. We're not afraid of men. We're not afraid of those evil people in the shadows that we don't know who they are. Because we know who wins and we know who holds us in his hand. So that is the good versus evil part of it. But we're on the right side, folks. So don't be afraid. Get up and stand up and speak up. And you have to do it. And you have to do it right now.
You bet. I 100% agree with everything you just said. Well, we're coming up on an hour here. Is there, I know we could talk for a couple more hours and just scratch the surface, but in the next closing minutes here, what would you want people to know about what you guys are doing now, and how do people get involved with your organization if they were to reach out to you and want to get involved down there in South Dakota?
Well, so we have a website, SD, like South Dakota Canvassing with 2 S's, sdcanvassing.com. We have tons and tons of information on our website. There is a media tab that has videos, one that has all the articles and documents. There's a big section on BPro. There's several articles that I've written. There's one that was just recently published in the Federalist magazine that is on that tab. All of our legal documents are out there. So if you want to follow what's going on with our lawsuits, that is out there. We have local action stuff. We can get you signed up as a poll worker, a poll watcher. We hold Zoom trainings for those kinds of things. We have on the local action tab, we now have one for the petitions that are going around to return to hand counting. So all of the people in their counties are in charge of their own petition. We're just, helping you find your neighbor so that if you want to sign it or you want to carry one, you guys can get together and do that. So we're just kind of directing traffic. We're not writing the petitions. We're not telling you what to put on your petition. It wasn't even our idea. We're just helping direct traffic because we have built that infrastructure. and can reach people. If you want to know what's going on in South Dakota, the best spot to go would be our Substack. So if you go to our website, the homepage, every page has a footer, and in that footer is the links, the little icons to all of our social media. You can click on those. You can go to our Rumble page to watch videos. But the Substack, I think we've sent out well over 50 articles now, and it's South Dakota specific information on the elections, and is jam-packed full of information. We can go a week and have to have like 5 or 6 sections in one Substack because there's so many things going on.
Yep.
But the good thing is that once you have laid, we did a lot of work. We drove all around the whole state last summer giving presentations to show people what we found. And now we're seeing the fruits of that labor as all these people in all these counties now know the truth. They are the ones going to the county commission meetings, asking them to return to hand counting. They're the ones carrying the petitions. They're all out there doing something. They just need the information. So that's very rewarding to see. And remember, we're in the majority. What is it? 80% of Republicans think that the elections are, there's cheating affects the elections.
Stolen. Yep.
Yeah, stolen. 70% of independents, I think over 50% of Democrats. So we are in the majority. They can gaslight you all day long. Don't believe it. Find your neighbors, get with the people around you, and then go to your county commission meeting, go to your auditor's office, get to know your legislator, get to know your city councilor, your school board member, make sure you have all their phone numbers and their emails, and then start engaging, because we have a representative republic and they can't represent us unless you are engaging with them to tell them how you want to be represented. You can't just vote and then assume that they're a Republican, so they're doing what you want. If you live in South Dakota, you know that for a fact does not happen. So we have to be engaged, and that's how you do it.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time and coming on tonight and visiting with us on what's going on. I know we could go for a couple more hours at least, and I'd actually like to have you back on as we get closer to the election and just kind of keep tabs on what's going on down there and see how this all plays out as we get closer to the election. So.
That would be great. Yeah, we have a dedicated team, and there's a lot of things still going on. There's a lot of things we're working on. There's a lot of explosive information that we have that will all come out in due time. So stay tuned. Follow us on our website. Follow all our social media. There's tons of stuff, and get connected with us. If you're from a different state and you're watching this, all of us from different states need to connect too, because you have information, we have information, we share information. We get farther faster. So thanks for having me on, and God bless all the people in North Dakota too that I know are working hard.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate it, and God bless you. And on our website too, we have a page for you guys, and we did link their website, correct, Marvin? I say we, but it's actually Marvin. He's our guy behind the scenes.
Yep, it's linked. If you go, I threw it in the comments here, today's show link.
Okay.
There's your South Dakota Canvassing website is attached right to it. People can click it, follow the link straight to you. So easy peasy.
Thank you.
You bet.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks again, Jessica. We really appreciate your time.
Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Have a good one.
That was Jessica Pollema with South Dakota Canvassing Board. So I met her and a few of her people that are involved with her group down there in Missouri, and it was a fantastic group, and they're doing great things down there.
So before we get a ton of hate with that Georgia document, what I pointed out there with the Lakota and Standing Rock, yes, they were involved. The tribal nations communicate with each other all over the country. But North Dakota, you look at the last 2 decades worth of things that have happened when it comes to voting in the tribal nations. It's been a constant uphill fight right up until the last redistricting, which the state just got sued for and lost because of gerrymandering of party lines. In 2020, we saw cancellation of voting events in September of 2020 that were supposed to be happening up in Newtown. In 2018, we saw lawsuits result in new litigation because it really hasn't been in favor of getting everybody to the polls. It's been an uphill battle. So it wasn't to say anything negative. It was more of a to be aware of. And that was something that I dealt with too when I was out campaigning, is because I would get a lot of conversations revolving around that. Well, why should the Native Americans get out and vote for you? And it's because I want to make it a fair voting system for everybody. So, and with what happened with the redistricting, we knew that was going to be a mess. No issue with Trenton Indian Service area losing their polling location. See, and that's exactly the point. Like, we shouldn't be pushing everybody into 4 spots in an entire county.
Yep.
You shouldn't. And we shouldn't be using the excuse that we can't get people out to work the polls, because with what the state spends on elections, we sure can pay people to be there for the day. Because if we got auditors making $120,000 a year on a county level, we should be able to pay people to work the polls.
You would
to
think.
Be there.
You would think, but that would take away their excuse of why we can't hand count. And I mean, this is all, if you,
it used to be I worked the election used to be something people were proud to say.
Yep.
So, and it's not tinfoil hat. We have issues. Whether it's transparency, or whether it's how ballots are handled, or whether, I mean, the guy last week said he bought how many thousands worth of ballots.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to do that.
No. And nothing's
it's pretty
been said.
simple. And when you question a Secretary of State, like Larry did from District 14, all of a sudden now we're getting threatened with, you're going to jail.
Right.
So
right.
I'm really fearful for this election cycle, Shilo. I am. Because we know it's going to be crazy going into primary. We know it's going to be crazy going into primary. With challenging in districts, with legislators moving forward, even though they haven't been endorsed by their district that they're trying to represent, with all these different challenges that we have going, whether it's for governor or for House or for school board or whatever.
Yeah.
But say we roll into 2024, we roll into the November primary, the Republicans win all the way across the nation. What do you think we're going to see for pushback from the other side? Because there's been so many concerns for so long. And we don't get proof, we just get a narrative.
Yeah.
I saw it when I was running. We see it now from our own Secretary of State's office. We have the safest, most secure elections ever.
But yet he won't come on and explain himself.
And it goes back to, it's only as safe and secure as the person that's holding the keys.
Yep. Doesn't matter who voted, it's who's counting the votes. And that's what, to your point, that's why these great people are just going to the primary. There's no accountability. They don't want to talk to their constituents or the people that they represent, allegedly. They don't want to do any of that. When you can actually have the gall to show up to your own endorsing convention and not speak to the crowd, and then not only that, vote to endorse your opponents?
See, what's crazy, Shiloh, is when I made my run for Secretary of State, it wasn't even about elections. It wasn't. I spoke about them because that's what people wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I wanted to improve website. I wanted a more secure website. I wanted more transparency on our business listings, our business filings. I wanted to get a true voter registration put into place.
Yeah.
So that we wouldn't have those questions. Because you look at the mess that's currently out there, and not just North Dakota. I'm not calling out Michael's Howe's office, whatever. Nationwide, we live in an instant gratification culture. And we cling to everything and anything that we can in desperate hope that there's going to be somebody on a white horse that's going to ride in and save the day. And at the end of the day, folks, that's you. You go out. You go out and talk about the candidates that you support. You go out and help with these elections. If you have questions on, you can be there and you can see it. Nobody's coming to save us.
No,
I'm
they're
sorry
waiting
to
for us
say
to
it.
fall.
Nobody's
for us to
coming to
fall.
save us. We got to do it ourselves. That's where I'm at.
No, that
Because
I agree with you.
I've lost too many friends that have gotten wrapped up in the belief that someone is going to come save them. And you go down these crazy rabbit holes and you're never seen again.
Yep.
I need you here. I need you focused. I need you involved. I need you contacting your legislators when they're trying to pass dumpster fire laws. I need you here when your county commission is trying to impose a hate crime ordinance, or your city commission is trying to impose a hate crime ordinance that doesn't even do justice to the people it's trying to protect. I need you here when your township is floating the idea of a 14% mill increase, which, by the way, was rumored. And they still passed a 2% mill increase, but their president was pretty pissed off that somebody found out that they were looking at 18% versus 4%.
Yeah.
But the thing is, folks, is you got to be involved. I'm sorry, that's my soapbox for tonight, because it's exhausting. It is.
Yeah. I mean, you and I, we've had this conversation before. It's like, that's, I don't know if you want to say it's an excuse or anything, but some of the reason why it's hard to find people to run for these offices for city and stuff like that is because, everybody gets fired up and they start whining and complaining. But then when you need someone to show up to these meetings, it's crickets. It's crickets. And that's where we need to get better as, Americans, patriots, however you want to say that. So,
well, you know what my real big holdup was on the city run, Shiloh? The honest to God holdup. I would get censored every meeting.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'd be calling this shit out, and it is shit. I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to say it. It's after 9. Hopefully your kids are in bed.
Yep.
But when you have shady dealings where they hide the notifications in the tiniest corner of the only publication that they can find that nobody reads, somebody needs to say something. If your township or your county isn't posting when their meetings are, what they're proposing, if they aren't allowing public comment for what they're proposing, like they did up in Benedict, when they tried passing a chicken ordinance, which is still illegal, by the way. Why? Because their ordinances were removed from City Hall. They're gone.
Now, why would they do that?
I don't know. Why would you sell?
Oh, where's the auditor at, by the way?
I think that auditor's gone, but why would the former mayor sell themselves land for $1 too, and then turn around and sell it?
peculiar.
right? At like $5,000 plus a lot.
Say what?
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
We don't give away public land around here, do we?
no, never. Anywho, there's been a lot of things going on this week. I mean, we got, I think, the three biggest things that since I don't know, this weekend. One was Mr. LaFleur was mad because I guess the laws are too confusing.
Isn't he House Majority Leader?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were too confusing, and he's all wound up about this Jason Doctor deal, and then what else do we
it's
have?
not like it was $5,000. It was $2 million.
Say what? Yeah, I know. So
Anyway, so yeah, you have that.
that.
Tom Campbell backed out of the U.S. House race.
I was just getting to that. Yep. You must have asked for an interview too many times, Marvin.
Well, he did the same thing in 2018 when he was up against Kelly.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if the reasons are the same or what. I mean, there was the fact that him and his brothers sold land to China, or not China, Bill Gates.
Same difference.
Yeah, right. Might as well be. That still to this day blows me away. But anyway, so he's done, supposedly. I'm sure we'll see him next election cycle run for something. Allegedly. Who knows?
Well,
And then,
commissioners next election cycle, maybe we'll see him run for that.
oh, good grief. And then we have who else? Oh, we have Kirsten Baszler on the radio, not knowing who's interviewing her. I got that sent to me about 5 times today too.
Oh,
So
was
that's
that
kind
the
of
Jay
interesting.
Thomas show, or which one was that one?
Yeah.
That's okay. I got something sent to me about that one too. She said Becker's property tax initiative doesn't eliminate property tax; it eliminates unfair property tax. Like it's kind of like the legislators, Shilo. You have this great big long bill, and at the bottom it says repeals section 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10. No one goes and looks what they're repealing.
And we wonder why. Anyway.
And what was the? Oh yeah. So I mean, that's been fun,
right? There was one more thing I was going to mention, and gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. I know we were talking about Kirsten and schools, and I mean that's a dumpster fire. No matter what she wants to say, how they want to spin it. I mean,
they sure are worried about Jason Heitkamp, though. He seems to come up every interview now.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
I don't know.
He's just a regular guy, isn't he?
You know, it'd be fun to see Jim and Jason going all the way to November.
Yeah. Well, at least we'd have quality candidates anyway, right?
Wouldn't that be the upset?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, like with the convention. I mean, besides 4 races, who else do we have to vote for? Yeah, just the outside, the Becker House race.
Oh, I wanted to bring that up too. So go ahead. You can talk through your
that race, and then we got the DPI race, and now that Steve Nagel has joined the National Committee Man race, that's going to be a good one. And of course, you got Lori and National Committee Woman. But other than that, I mean, who else do we really have to vote for? We don't have any good candidates, not at this point.
Well,
everybody's jumping on the Kelly bandwagon, but what has he done for us? Not
I
a
guess we'll
whole lot.
find out.
Yeah.
So, with the convention, folks, 4 years ago, I was asked going into convention if I would be ready to speak if they changed the rules from the floor to allow it. That's when the whole you had to pay X amount of money rules went into play. That's when the if you ran in the independent was that December before.
Mm-hmm.
To let you know, as a candidate wanting to follow the party rules, I was very adamant about not wanting that to happen. I was there as a guest. I was there to attend. I was there to gather signatures. That was it. But to change the rules at the convention, so to say if they were going to change the rules to get Becker nominated at the convention because the can't get the Republican endorsement because he ran as an independent in 22.
Just a minute.
Go ahead.
Are we sure we want to say this? I thought this was top secret.
It's not top secret.
I know I'm being sarcastic.
It would take a 2/3 majority vote from the floor.
Okay, so say that again one more time for everybody to hear that.
In order to change the rules for Rick Becker to receive the endorsement at convention, it would take a 2/3 vote of all the registered delegates at the convention. We saw the hard feelings just from trying to change the chairman at the 2020 election or at the 2020 convention. No, that was 20. Oh, yeah, it was 22.
That was 22.
Sorry, we saw the hard feelings that came from that. We don't. Right now, we are at what, 29 to 28 when it comes to our committee chairs. We're going to still have a tough fight if we think we're going to change that to get that 2/3 majority vote. And as somebody that was in that position, and I'm not speaking for Rick here, as somebody that was in that position, I felt for me it would be more detrimental if that rule would have changed so that I could have spoken against Michael Howe. I felt that would have reflected negatively on me because I would have been one of the only candidates that would have been up for that. And I didn't want that kind of hanging over my head. I didn't. So for me, like, yeah, I announced late. That's on me. I challenged Michael in the primary. That was my decision. But at that point, I was still new. I didn't know I had to have all my stuff in by March 7th. So I want people thinking about that going into convention. When we get to convention, I want you to look around and I want you to see the faces that are there. I honestly don't feel that we're going to have a 2/3 swing on that vote. And that's scary and it's sad because it should have been fixed right away.
It should have been. It should have been, but to here's the other point, or the other side of that coin is that, you know, we've been talking about these elections and different things like that. People are just tired. And I mean, let's face it, North Dakota GOP has been a dumpster fire for a while. And I think people are just, they don't care anymore. And now you've got candidates and establishment, they're not even going to their endorsing conventions. And they're not wanting to answer for their voting record.
They don't want to face the people they're supposed to represent.
And so people are like, well, what's the use of going to a convention that it doesn't even matter because these guys are going to go to the primary anyway. I mean, I've talked to so many people all over the state, and that's honestly, that's the reaction that's how the conversation goes as well. Are you going to the convention? Yeah, neither am I, or whatever. And then I just think it's going to be a total chaos and this and that. And it's not even going to matter anyway because most of them are going to the primary. So
I'm still going.
yeah, I hear you.
I want to be involved. I want to watch it happen. I want
Yep.
to see what happens because you gain a lot of insight just being at convention.
Yep.
Like it's not what's going on the stage, folks. It's what's going on in the back corners of the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's going on out in the hallways. It's what's going on in the meeting halls. That's where the fun is at the convention.
Yep.
So, granted, I won't be as anonymous as I was last time around, but oh,
You'll have that on a tough job, man.
yeah. But
Well,
anyway, like, I don't know. I'm tired. I'm cranky.
yeah, you kind of been that way the last couple shows. I was wondering. I was gonna have to come down there and drop the elbow on you or something.
In that way, the last 6 months, man. You can only beat your face into the wall so many times.
I hear you.
Like it's to this point, folks. If your representation isn't representing you, it's time to retire them.
And by retiring, we mean vote them out.
Please, for the love of God, do something about it. Even if you don't feel your vote counts, go to the polls and vote, please.
Yep.
Get out there in June 11th. Get out there in November and vote. The primary is just as important as the general election in North Dakota.
Some would say even more important.
Way more important because of the local votes.
Yep. Yep. Well, Marvin, I've been having this thing down here in my name tag, the mypillow.com with our promo code HTD. And so for a few months now, I actually went and I got one of the pillows. I got one of the travel pillows. I got one of the towels. My wife is wearing the slippers. And now we're getting the puppies one of those My Pillow beds.
Don't forget about your coffee that I keep hearing about.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Every morning I've had my coffee. That is awesome. I really actually like that stuff. But I was just going to show you these travel pillows that I have. Now, I've got two of these actually. I got this one when I ordered my first bag of coffee. They were giving them away when I ordered my first bag of coffee. So we'd appreciate if you guys go to My Pillow, and when you guys go and order your stuff, whatever it may be, whether it be pillows or blankets or towels, if you use our code HTD, you'll get a certain amount off on each of your purchases, and some of that goes back to the show here. So we'd appreciate your support there, and I know Mike would appreciate it as well. So he's contrary to popular belief, he's been a big fighter for our country and our rights, and working on our voting systems as well. So at any rate, I'd just appreciate it if you guys do go to mypillow.com and purchase anything. Please use our code HTD. We'd definitely appreciate it. And like I said, I use this thing all the time. I take it on the road with me when I go down.
So why is it still in the bag?
Because I got two of them. I just got this one. I got two of them, and actually, I got one. The one that I got is it comes with a pillowcase. So this one didn't. It was a promo deal. So
sorry, I couldn't help it.
Yeah. Why is it still in the bag? Well, that's why. But I'm gonna break that one out too. So at any rate, Friday we have another new guest. Her name is Whitney Ehrman. She is going to talk about her fundraiser that she did. It's called Funds for Fuel Cards. And what she did is she started a donation deal where people could give money, and she put the money on fuel cards and distributed it through the community down there in Bismarck with families, in need families. And so we're gonna have Whitney on Friday. So I'm looking forward to having her for a few reasons. Is because I'm pretty proud of her. She is my niece. So I'm pretty proud of what she's done, and we're gonna visit with her about her deal there with funds for fuel cards. So that's
So,
Friday.
Shiloh, I'm going to put a rule in for Friday.
What?
As much as we want, no politics on Friday. It's Good Friday, man.
No politics.
Let's talk about something positive. Let's talk about something good. Let's just go into Easter weekend with something to celebrate.
I would agree with that. Fair enough.
So I'll
Fair
bite my tongue till the following Tuesday. That following Tuesday, we do have Kurt Chafee and Naomi Bronchion. Naomi, if you're familiar with her, that's Turning Point USA Faith. They are hosting a leadership conference at Newsong at the end of April. So they're going to be coming on to talk about that, talk about a few other things, talk about what they do. And that should be a fun show too. And then obviously the following Friday, we will be at the state convention causing issues. I'm going to strap one of those GoPro cameras to Shiloh's hat. We're just going to let him wander around.
Oh, geez, thanks. I'm already going to target. Great. I'm just going to walk around with a big X on my back.
I mean, it's better than a cell phone hanging out of the pocket. You know, that's why you wear a suit, so you can put your phone like this after you put record. Oh, wait, I don't do that.
Yeah, I get you. I got you. Well, now that Marvin's got me pegged. Jeez.
Anyway, we'll have a good show Friday. Again, I'm going to bite my tongue on anything politics, and I want you to too. I want to just hear what she's been doing, how she's helping the community. We'll go into the Easter weekend strong.
That sounds like a great idea. I like that, and that's what we'll do. So we will see you guys on Friday. Same Here's the Deal time, same Here's the Deal channel.